For the Right Worshipful Ceremonial Mayor of the City of Salford, Councillor Anne-Marie Humphreys.
Good morning, everybody. Please can I ask you to stand and join me in civic prayers, which this morning will be conducted by Father Frankie Mulgrew, Parish Priest of St James and All Souls. Thank you.
How you all doing? You okay? Okay, great. Okay, so just going to lead you in a prayer, praying for your budget and all that you're going to do today. Maybe as well during the prayer, if it's okay, I'm going to say these simple three words in the middle of prayer, and simple three words just simply go, "Come, Holy Spirit, come, Holy Spirit, come, Holy Spirit," and I invite you where you are, if you're happy to repeat those prayers in the silence of your heart. And the simple translation is just asking for all God's blessings and all these giftings and all that He wants to give you in these moments. And as I say with any prayer, it's a bit like this. If someone knocks the front door of your house and you open the door and you say, "Come in," you have faith and trust they're going to come in. You don't think, "I'll be stood on my doorstep now for the next 5 to 6 hours." God isn't complicated. He loves to come in. He loves to bless us. So just pray in these moments. So Father God, we praise you, we thank you. We praise you, we thank you, and we bless your holy name. We just ask for your abundant blessings in these moments that you just pour out. All your wisdom, all your knowledge, all your love, all your compassion, all your mercy, all that we need in these moments. We just ask for an outpouring of your Holy Spirit, your Spirit, Father, to guide us and to lead us, to make our hearts more docile to you. We pray for this great city, Lord. Transform it ever anew in all your love and all your blessings. Give it more conviction of your hope, of your mercy, of your love. And teach us to love as you love. As we know, when we love people, we can change them. When we love them with your love, we can transform them. So the powerful prayers as well of our Blessed Mother Mary, we just ask for an invocation of your Holy Spirit and your holy blessings. And Mother Mary, be truly present in these moments and pray and intercede as well for this meeting and for all our hearts to be more ignited with God's holy fires. So just invite you just to join me in that simple prayer 3 times. If you're happy to, not out loud, but in the silence of your heart, as I pray, "Come, Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit." And we just have a few moments of silence as we allow the Lord to bless and fill your hearts with His joy and peace and goodness. So may Almighty God bless you in your meeting and bless you in your families. I know that you love and cherish, and bless this beautiful city in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Father Frankie. That was lovely. Thank you very much. Please be seated, everyone. So, to start, item 1, announcements of special business. So, this is suspension of standing orders. Firstly, I have been notified of the intention to seek a suspension to the normal rules of debate, which is due to the special circumstances of this meeting being held, and I propose this be considered at this point. So, can I ask the City Mayor to propose a motion in accordance with Salford City Council Constitution, Rule 2, Part 4, Section A, Standing Orders. Council Procedure Rules be suspended, specifically Rule 18.5 to allow a variation to the length of speeches. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair, I hereby propose the motion to suspend standing orders to allow us to obviously extend this meeting should we be required to. Thank you.
Thank you, City
I'll
Mayor.
second, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you.
Madam
Took the words
Chair,
out of my mouth there. Thank you, Councillor Greedo. That's agreed. There is an intention there will be a 10-minute break at approximately 11 o'clock. I will suggest this provisionally be after or during or at a more appropriate time indicated in the meeting. We'll see how we go with that. I do have one more point of special business. This is a matter arising from January Council. Can I ask the City Mayor to say on that? Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much, Chair. In my response to Councillor Garrido at the last full council meeting, I wish to clarify that the context he has now provided myself with after the meeting in person is actually very helpful to better understand the comments he made with regards to Kenya, a country he has actually personally visited. And obviously this understanding is to put things in full context. Following the discussion when Councillor Greedo confirmed his remarks were intended to be complementary to Kenya in achieving a plastics-free environment and suggested that in this respect, Salford could perhaps follow their lead. Having heard Councillor Greedo's remarks, which were made from his own personal experiences after visiting Kenya, I'm happy to confirm, as I've also confirmed to him in person in meetings since full council, that I was in no way accusing him personally of being racist or of holding racist views. And I wish to record, obviously today, in terms of correcting the record, to clarify to this effect, and therefore would withdraw the comment I made with regards to bordering on racism. Obviously this is as a consequence of further context and explanation being provided following full council by Councillor Garrido, which I personally feel warrants such a correction of the public record. Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Mayor. Councillor Garrido, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep it very brief. I appreciate the statement made by the City Mayor and his withdrawal of the comments in question, which I found personally offensive and distressing. I therefore welcome the withdrawal of these comments, which I'm happy to accept.
Thank you, Councillor Garrido. So we'll now move on to item 2. Apologies. Do we have apologies for today's council?
Yeah, we received apologies from Councillors Birch, Cohen, Jones, Lewis, Mashita, Sharma, Ward and Youd.
Warren. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 3, declarations of interest. Do any members have any personal, prejudicial or disclosable pecuniary interests that they need to declare at this meeting? In which case, can I ask those members to declare them, explain the nature of the interest and to which specific agenda item it relates to? Declarations should be specific, relevant and not merely a general indication of your membership of a particular organisation or outside body. All right, thank you. So if we move on to item 4, report of the City Mayor, 2023 to 2024 revenue budget and capital programme. We earlier agreed a suspension to allow a variation in the length of the speeches, which is primarily to allow the City Mayor appropriate time to present his budget statement. It is my intention to afford a similar length of time to Councillor Robin Garrido, as leader of the Conservative Opposition Group, to make a response if he wishes. Other than those two specific exceptions and to ensure proceedings remain focused, can I ask that all members try to keep their questions and comments as brief as possible and to limit these to no more than 5 minutes? There may be one more exception to this, which is the presentation of the amendment from Councillor Saunders. So can I therefore ask the City Mayor to present his report on the 2023-2024 Revenue Budget and Capital Programme, after which I will ask Councillor Jack Yowd, as Lead Member for Finance and Support Services, to second the budget's proposals. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I wasn't made aware he wasn't here, so it's Councillor Hines who will do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So I'm here today to recommend that Council approve my budget for 2023-24. This is the 7th budget I've presented to this chamber, and the challenges and the difficult decisions facing the Council, I have to say, have not got any easier. 12 months ago, we were beginning to emerge from 2 years of unprecedented social and economic dislocation. Disruption which, based on the necessary health protection measures to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19, affected every aspect of our lives in our city and impacted significantly our residents, businesses, partners, and of course, our own organisation and staff. The impacts of the pandemic are still being felt today. But 12 months ago, we could have never imagined what would have happened next. A protracted war in Ukraine, the ongoing impacts of Brexit on trade, investment and jobs, and economic shocks in the price of energy. And not to forget, a rapid increase in inflation and rising interest rates following Liz Truss's disastrous mini-budget, costing the country a staggering £30 billion. And that's probably a conservative estimate. All of this at a time when we were only just beginning to experience the real economic consequences of the pandemic. We often talk about the long tail of COVID-19. 12 months later, the resulting cost of living crisis has again affected every aspect of life for our residents, families, and our city. Even now, we're only beginning to properly understand the true scale of that impact. First, of the pandemic, the ongoing impacts of Brexit, the global energy crisis, and further economic shocks following the national government's utter incompetence. Now more than ever, it is imperative that we use the Council's budget to support our residents, our families and businesses in our city, and to ensure that we continue to provide those essential services and support that our residents rely on. Against this backdrop, the financial challenges facing us have not gone away. The City Council is still needing to find £6 million again this year to balance its budget. Despite a better than expected financial settlement for local government in December, we continue to face a real contraction in our funding, whilst at the same time, national government continue to expect councils up and down the country to hike council tax and the adult social care precept, regressive forms of taxation to raise the money necessary to stave off further job and service cuts. The crisis in local government funding will continue to impact on services we are able to deliver to our residents, and tough choices inevitably remain. But before going into further detail of the budget, first let me outline the technical elements of the budget that I'm actually presenting to Council today. I'm recommending an overall revenue budget of £244.692 million for 23-24. I'm also recommending a capital programme of £88.882 for 23-24, using the resources set out in Part 3 of my report. And in accordance with the formal resolution set out in Appendix 4, I'm proposing a council tax requirement of £137.546 million in accordance with the legislation, a basic amount of council tax of £1,862.28p, and an amount for each valuation band in accordance with the legislation. An amount of council tax for each valuation band in accordance with Section 30 and 36 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992. I'm also recommending that the Council approves the Housing Revenue Account budget for 23-24 of £365 million. And then finally, from a technical point of view, I'm recommending that the Council approve the Treasury Management Prudential Indicators for 22-23 through to 26-27 as set out in Part 4 of my report. So let me now turn to the main part of my speech today, and the budget obviously before you. And I do that also acknowledging that on Friday of this week is the first anniversary of the Russian Federation's invasion of Ukraine. And our thoughts and prayers continue to be with the Ukrainian people at this time. It has been a constant focus of this council that we will put people at the heart of our budget proposals. This year, that imperative remains. The budget puts our residents, the people we are here to serve and to support, and our staff, the people who deliver our services across the city, who are the very heart of our organisation and beyond, at the centre of the financial decisions we will make today. 12 months ago, I said it was clear that residents in the city would face a cost of living squeeze like never before. I wish I was wrong. In December 2021, inflation was at 5.4%. Roll forward 12 months and inflation is over 10%. Everyday household bills are increasing, with the price cap for household energy bills expected to increase again in April, at the same time as the energy support payments end. Increases in mortgage and rent payments and the average household food shop estimated to have increased by almost 10% over the past 12 months. Shockingly, some of our residents face the heartbreaking choices of choosing between heating and eating. And increasingly, I'm reminded that some people don't even choose between the two. They don't do either of them. And there is no end in sight. The energy price cap is forecast to increase again in April. Interest rates may still rise further, and inflation shows no sign of abating in the near future. As they always do, these increases will continue to hit the poorest in our city and across the UK the hardest. Those already struggling will face further challenges. Indeed, are already facing unimaginable choices, and even more people will find themselves struggling. And as it has for many years, it falls again to councils to try and support our residents through tough times. And we must do this at the same time as continuing to invest and ensure good quality core services that are at the very heart of our organisation. So the budget before you today will continue our efforts to tackle poverty and inequality. It will help provide financial support to those struggling most through the cost of living. It will enable us to invest more in adult social care with a commitment to delivering the real living wage and a decent pay award in 2023-24 to all those providing vital support to older and vulnerable people. And to support our foster carers, providing valuable care to our children and young people. It will enable us to continue to invest in decent, truly affordable housing. Put simply, these are just the right things to do. And I'm really pleased that additional funding for adults and children's social care is at the very heart of our budget proposals. Government increases in the social care grant, new funding in the forms of the discharge grant, and increases to the adult social care market sustainability and improvement funding will see an additional net investment of £11.9 million invested into both adults and children's social care here in Salford. This funding will help us to address delays in discharge, reduce social care waiting times, improve on the low fee rates historically paid to providers, address workforce capacity and retention issues, whilst also funding innovation. Although it doesn't deliver the £13 billion of investment in social care that the Local Government Association has been calling for prior to the local government finance settlement to address the nation's needs around the adult social care crisis. I'm really pleased that this budget also enables us to invest in our foster carers, increasing the fees we are able to pay. These families provide safety and care to our most vulnerable children when they most need it. They will help to give our cared for children the best possible start in life. It forms part of our renewed commitment to shape Salford into a child-friendly city. Whilst this funding is welcome, it is by no means sufficient to meet the growing pressures we continue to see for both adults and children services. Demand is continuing to outstrip our ability to meet the needs of residents. And I once again call on government to deliver its pledge for a fair and sustainable solution to meeting the costs of social care. Being forced to use regressive forms of taxation to meet these budgetary challenges against a backdrop of 13 years of government austerity and cuts is grossly unfair. Ensuring fair pay for those providing social care is also a core principle of this City Council. And as a result of this budget, the Council will be investing to ensure the 2022 National Local Government Pay Award is paid to all members of staff employed at Aspire. On top of our continuing commitment to ensure all care workers in the city are paid at least the real living wage. This consolidates our ongoing support for those that provide essential care to adults and older people and children across the city. In a time when the cost of living crisis is having profound impacts on people's lives, it is vital that we're able to retain committed, highly skilled and caring people across social care, but equally across all roles within the City Council and beyond. We pride ourselves on being a values-based organisation, a people-led organisation. Our staff are the very essence of what we stand for as a City Council. It is why I am proud that this budget will enable us to invest in the outcomes of the pay review, ensuring fair financial reward to those that provide essential services across the city. It will ensure that the council is able to attract and keep highly skilled and committed people in all roles. And I'm proud of our staff and the work that they do for the city, and this budget enables us to invest in their future. We're also committed to supporting residents as they struggle to deal with the escalating cost of living. We know that many of our residents, especially those on the lowest incomes, are really struggling. Despite recent welcome news that the Household Support Fund is to continue, we're deeply disappointed that it's not going to be uprated by inflation. We already in this City Council have a strong support offer in place, building on our core Better Off offer, our welfare rights and debt advice teams, and also our Salford Assist programme. We're also committed to maintaining our council tax reduction scheme at existing levels. So the budget before you today will build on that support that's already there in the system. What we propose to do is use a one-off refund from the Greater Manchester Waste Levy, which will invest into a cost of living crisis fund, equating to £3.2 million. We're still finalising how the funding will be utilised, but we're exploring its use to support an expanded free school meals system here in the city through the holiday voucher programme, boosting our support for our credit union and additional council housing through Derive. Having a warm and affordable home is the most important asset in someone's life. A decent home is the essential foundation for every aspect of our life, hence why it's at the base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'm pleased that the government has decided to continue for another year with the New Homes bonus, although legacy payments continue not to be paid to local authorities up and down the country. I am, though, concerned that the government have not committed to continue with this investment beyond this financial year, especially when we know that the revenue support grant calculations don't adequately reflect population increases. We will absolutely be looking to contribute to the promised consultation on the replacement of New Homes bonus, which the government have committed to before 24-25 in terms of the future settlement. The capital proposals included in the budget before council today will also enable us to continue to invest in building council houses, more than double our investment in the city's roads and footpaths, and of course build on our investment in Eccles Town Centre to really create a vibrant town centre that works for the people who live and work there. And this is despite us not being successful with the latest round of levelling up from national government, who, from the feedback I've recently received, still continue to be infatuated with the Treasury's Green Book and land value uplift, which I know this council chamber knows has led to the skewering of funding into London and the South East. It makes a mockery in many respects of levelling up. And it was disappointing to learn from the Minister on national TV that actually we probably shouldn't have actually bid for round 2 of levelling up, because allegedly, actually, those that were successful in round 1 were never going to be successful in round 2. It would have been useful had the government told us that before encouraging submissions from local authorities like our own, costing us significant resources, both in terms of time and money. But nevertheless, we will crack on with Eccles. It's a priority for the city, as are all of our townships across Salford. The investments outlined in the budget today reflect a better than expected local government finance settlement. Salford's core spending power, the measure that government likes to use when commenting on local government's ability to delivering services, has increased by 10.4%. But I must be honest, this is a better settlement than we expected, and I welcome this funding. It will allow us to continue to deliver important services in Salford, but the headlines hide a far more complex financial challenge and the political reality of the financial settlement from government. And as colleagues will know from the last council meeting, we discussed that in detail in terms of how the methodology is being manipulated to again support Tory councils, predominantly in the south of the country. The increase, though, in spending power, as all of you know, assumes the maximum increase in local council tax and social care precept. Central government is not spending their money, they're spending the people of Salford's money when they talk about increasing in core spending power. It also assumes a level of growth in our council tax base, at least equating to the last 5 years, and it applies inflation based on September's 2022 CPI. None of these are sufficient for long-term sustainable financial planning. It goes nowhere near far enough to reverse the impacts of 13 years of cuts and unfunded budget pressures within our budgets, the rising costs of goods and services, and the increased demand for council services, particularly social care. And through the budget process, you'll all know, inflation alone is costing this local authority this year at least £7 million. And since 2010, we've seen almost £240 million cut from the council's core budget. And government calculations of spending power once again continue to shift responsibility for funding essential core services to local people through council tax and precepts. And even after this year's announcement, we as a city council continue to face over £36 million worth of further cuts across the next 2 financial years. Local government cannot continue to sustain these levels of cuts. The implementation of the Fair Funding Review, the business rate reset, the review of business rate retention has again been delayed. While some of this gives the council some short-term benefits, it is impossible to plan effectively over the medium term. There remains no long-term plan for the sustainable funding of social care, sufficient to meet the increasing demands for these vital services. And once again, we're looking at a single-year budget. Government have committed to reviews in 25, 26, but I must admit, I am actually very sceptical. As I present this budget today, we have no real longer-term financial certainty, which is absolutely incredulous when you consider the importance of local government to our residents, to our families, and to our businesses here in the city. This is not the way to plan for essential services that Salford residents need, rely on, and rightly deserve. I say this every year, but if we are serious about supporting people, about tackling inequalities, about levelling up, then local government funding must be put on a sustainable footing if we're to secure its mid to long-term future. Reluctantly, and to ensure we can make the investments I have outlined and continue to support our residents who need it the most, this budget is made up of a 2.99% increase in core council tax and a 2% increase in the adult social care precept. This means Band A households in Salford will pay an extra £1.13 per week relating to both core increases and the adult social care precept. I do know that this will be a blow to many of our residents, but we're faced with a very tough choice to either accept the government's proposed increases or cease many of the services our residents depend on. Cutting services, cutting jobs is no way to run the council, especially after 13 years of doing that. Our decision today also assumes the savings identified via our Innovate programme will be delivered. It assumes that the work we're doing to drive value from our third-party spend, to find alternatives to high levels of overtime and the use of agency staff, to develop an integrated neighbourhood model and to use our housing support funds better will deliver £1.8 million worth of savings in 23-24. Longer-term transformation and innovation is how the council ultimately delivers on many of its responsibilities. And it's the only way we'll continue to be able to deliver the full range of services we currently do in the future. So once again, we have faced tough choices this year in bringing this budget to council. But I want to reassure council that we've left no stone unturned in our commitment to protecting the city's residents from the worst effects of the continued government onslaught and cuts to local government up and down the country. And I'm here today to honestly commend this budget to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Mayor. This will be seconded by Councillor Bill Hines.
Seconded, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. So, as an amendment has been submitted by the Conservative group, this has been circulated and details alternative budget proposals. Therefore, can I ask Councillor Arnold Saunders to propose this amendment, which will then be seconded by Councillor Adam Keeley. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I beg to move the amendment to the City Mayor's budget that stands in the name of the opposition Conservative group. Firstly, however, like the City Mayor, can I, in this week, which will mark the first anniversary of Putin's illegal war in Ukraine, express our solidarity with the people of Ukraine. We mourn all the victims of this senseless war. I would like to begin by thanking several people. I must start with the Section 151 officer, Joanne Hardman, and her team, who have literally given hours of their time over the past 3 months to ensure our proposals were fully legal and that the figures added up and that it was a compliant and balanced budget that we are proposing. I would also like to thank other directors and officers, including Tom Stannard, Debbie Brown, and the monitoring officer, Yolanda Puzio, for their input, not input into the actual budget, but their input into advice thereof. And I would also like to thank members' services for expertly including our amendment into the council pack. I must make special mention of our group leader, Councillor Robin Garrido, who has literally been at my side and sometimes at my front the whole way. I welcome Her Majesty's Government's proposals to review local government finance. Council tax is, as the City Mayor often points out, even this morning, a regressive tax. We weren't even able to propose varying the percentage increase across the different bands, as this would not be legal. I welcome the proposals to level up the north, etc. It isn't perfect, we know. I join in the disappointment we all feel that our bid for money to regenerate Eccles Town Centre was unsuccessful, as we've heard. For what it is worth, I have a proposal on levelling up. Yep, you heard it here first. I believe we should adopt a version of the Barnett formula, created by my good friend, Lord Joel Barnett. Yes, admittedly. In relation to funding the devolved administrations, incidentally, he told me and everyone else that would listen, including the House of Lords, that it was only ever intended as a stopgap measure, but it's carried on for over 40 years, but nevertheless. So the Barnett formula, of course, relates to the devolved administrations, and I believe we should have a similar formula for the regions, particularly of England. Now, should anyone kindly suggest that this should be named the Saunders formula, I would reluctantly but humbly accede to the request. At this point, I want to point out that Her Majesty's Government gives much support to councils in addition to the revenue support grant, etc. Only recently, for example, £15.5 million was given to Greater Manchester for pothole repairs, of which Salford City Council received £700,000. Although I'm not sure about the maths involved in that, but that's what I've read. In the last few days alone, Salford has been chosen to benefit from the Family Hub's Transformation Fund. Additionally, the government is giving direct funding to help needy households through many different schemes, including direct energy support schemes. Our proposals in the form of the amendments that have been distributed, I'm sure you've all read, are, as I said, fully costed. The numbers add up, and the Section 151 officer and the monitoring officer have declared it to form a legal budget, fully compliant with all the relevant acts of Parliament, and discharging our fiduciary responsibilities. As I would say, our budget is fully kosher. Now, before Councillor Merry gets too excited for his own good, I do admit the Section 151 officer did offer some words of caution, as you will note in the text, particularly regarding future years, but you can also read our response to that in our amendment. Basically, we feel that residents are facing such a difficult time right now that we should be doing all we can to alleviate their hardship now. We are confident that the policies this government are pursuing will ensure that the future will be bright. The future will be much less difficult than it is now. Inflation has already started to come down. Interest rates, according to the experts, are at or near their peak and will start to fall. Fuel costs are already lower, and energy costs are going to start coming down soon. Now, I do not propose to go through our proposals line by line, any more than the City Mayor did with his budget, and any more than the Chancellor of the Exchequer does in the government's budget. All councillors and officers can read our proposals for themselves. Press, media, and members of the public can access our amendment via the Salford City Council website. Although I'm afraid I don't have a red book for the press to get their teeth into. But I just wish to talk through the headline points. Other colleagues will flesh out the proposals in their speeches shortly. The headline is, of course, that our amendments mean there will be no increase whatsoever in core council tax. We are retaining the 1.99% increase in the social care precept, and of course we have no control over Mayor Burnham's Greater Manchester precept, such matters as police and fire services, etc. It is true that the government have allowed councils to raise core council tax by up to 2.99% without the need to hold a referendum. This is in addition to the 1.99% increase in the ring-fence social care precept. However, just because we can do something doesn't mean we must do it. Many councils, including some locally, are not raising core council tax by the full amount. Many Conservative opposition groups are similarly proposing a smaller increase or indeed no increase at all. However, I note that unlike Manchester City Council and the Greater Manchester Mayor, Salford City Council did not even engage in an online consultation with the public. Not that much notice seems to have been taken of the public responses to those consultations. We feel people are being squeezed so much by the cost of living crisis now, affecting food, energy, mortgages and rent, which, by the way, local housing providers are raising by up to 7%, including our own Salford City Council. We've raised rents by 7%. So we feel that we should offer all our residents some respite on council tax. COVID and Putin's illegal war and energy price rises over which we have no control have conspired to cause misery for millions. You can all read our proposals for saving money. My colleagues will no doubt wax lyrical and expand on them in due course. However, I just want to mention 2 points. Whilst our group agree with the need to offer a one-off increase in salary to staff in order to attract the best talent, as apparently we've fallen behind other local authorities, particularly in the upper pay scales, nevertheless, we feel that this should be put on hold for 1 year. I'm sure we can manage to attract good staff, and looking at our top table, I think we've done remarkably well, considering the handicaps we are supposed to be under. For 1 more year. I know we will still have to find 4.1 million fresh next year, but if we started this year, we'd still have to find 4.1 million next year, plus next year's increase. And by the end of this financial year, we should have a benefit from not having to fund the landing in Media City. We also propose a small reduction, as you can see, in the hardship fund of 0.419 million, which itself comes from a windfall in the form of a refund from GM, as the Mayor has mentioned.
Okay, Councillor Saunders, you've got 30 seconds left, thank you.
Right, okay. Okay, I also want to make brief mention of some of the areas which we actually increase funding. Children's crossings and street cleaning, which go to the core of council responsibilities. Many of you will have heard of the broken windows theory, so successfully implemented by New York and the Caribbean, which says that dirty streets, etc., are both the cause, symptom and cause of crime and disorder. So I urge all colleagues on all sides of the chamber to vote for our amendments. Vote with your consciences. Show your independence of mind and spirit. Madam Chair, this amendment constitutes a fully legal, balanced, compliant budget. It is a budget of the people, for the people. It is a budget for the many, not the few. And I commend it to the council.
Thank you for that, Councillor Saunders. Can we now have that seconded by Councillor Keever, please?
Not really sure how to follow from that, Madam Mayor, but I will second the amendment, but I'll reserve my right to speak at the end of the debate.
Thank you. So I already have some members indicating to speak, but do any other members have questions or comments? Please try to keep your comments to 5 minutes maximum. So I've already got Councillor Merry who wants to speak.
I can assure you, Councillor Saunders, that having sort of sat for about 30 odd years listening to Conservative budgets in this particular chamber, none of them get me terribly excited. So I don't feel excited by this one either. I just want to concentrate on 3 key issues, if I may. And incidentally, perhaps a degree of humility on the part of Councillor Saunders might be useful. Do you remember in this council chamber him telling us how Liz Truss was the answer to the problems that we see, right? And, you know, of course, we know what happened. Apparently, Liz Truss believes that the stock market is run by a bunch of extreme left-wingers, you know, which I find a little bit sort of doubtful. So the three issues I want to concentrate on, but I mean, there are some vindictive stuff as well as that about the working class movement library, but the three issues I want to concentrate on are the issues around the pay review, the issues around the transfer of money from the assessment system that you operate, Councillor August, in order to fund people in council tax H band, right? Do they not realise that the people at the bottom of the scale, their increase, their freezing of council tax is going to be of absolutely no use to them whatsoever? Do they not realise the desperation that people are actually living in at the moment, and they're actually trying to make things happen? But no, we're going to take £400,000 off them and transfer it to people on Band H. This is not a people's budget, Councillor Saunders. This is a Toff's budget, basically. This is designed to support the people who are at the top end of the scale at the expense of the people at the bottom end of the scale. I also want to talk briefly about the pay review. The reason we're doing the pay review is because we think that Salford is entitled to decent people working for them at the level that is actually being implemented across the country by Tory authorities who are actually paying their staff more. But no, as far as the Conservatives are concerned, our staff are not worth it, whereas staff in other organisations, in other local authorities are worth it, and that is apparently what they want to do. And then we're talking about a reduction in the communications team. They don't want people to know about their actual proposals. They don't want people to know about what we're actually trying to do to help them. They want to reduce the amount of money that we're spending on that in order to make it happen. For their unfortunately to try and make the books balance. Just because it's legal, right, and that's a distinct improvement on some of the budgets that they've come to this chamber with, just because it's legal does not mean to say it's the right thing to do, and it is not the right thing to do. I think that what we're left with is the people's budget as proposed by the City Mayor, if I might say so, compared to the Toff's budget that transfers money away from the poorest members of our society into the people who pay the most council tax. And that is not right, in my opinion. There is an interesting survey that the County Councils Network have done, which is a Tory-controlled organisation, who have come to the conclusion that 82% of all councils are going to the maximum level in order to actually fund all the pressures that are on them in terms of the budget. 82%. Does that not sort of make Councillor Saunders pause for thought and reflection on whether what we're proposing is the right thing? I'll tell you what, if it's a choice between putting people on Band H, of actually freezing their council tax, and a choice between that and supporting the actual cost of living fund as we have at the moment, I know which side I'm on. I'm on the side of the people of Salford rather than the rich people of Salford. I think it's important that we try and provide services for everybody, but I think it's also important that we provide particular help for those people at the bottom of the scale. Incidentally, those people are, for example, in my ward, which are desperate for the moment, desperate for help at the moment, and are needing that help in order to make it happen. So from that point of view, I'm quite clear. I think this is a budget that is not a particularly significant one, and it's probably based on the Liz Truss School of Economics, and I think this is probably the way not to go forward in terms of Salford. I commend what the City Mayor has already said in terms of our budget, because we're delivering for the people of Salford, not just a small minority.
Thank you, Councillor Mary. Councillor McCusker, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just see this as a very short-term proposal that's come forward from the Tories. Once you don't raise income tax in 1 year, that's gone forever. So over 10 years, that 2.9% becomes a huge amount. It becomes a hole in the budget. And as Councillor Mary say, we need to have a budget which supports the poorest in society. The other thing about the short-term approach in trying to defer the salary review is that things continue to happen. Within technical services and engineering, if you've got a turnover rate of 18 to 20% against an LGA average of 13%, that has consequences. It means you can't do things. It means it costs you far more because you've got to bring in consultants. It means you're losing the skills and expertise and that historic knowledge that those staff have. It's really important that we address them. We've got a fantastic team. Within planning, we won Local Planning Authority of the Year. That happens through the dedication of staff. But we can't just keep kicking into the long grass and need to address the huge disparity between our staff at the private sector, at the top end, those technical jobs, and even with the local authorities. It's a really short-term approach which just builds in trouble into our finances going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McCusker. Councillor Bailey, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I thought I should call Councillor Saunders comrade after his very excitable contribution today. I fully enjoyed it as well, I might add. It had a lot of entertainment value, if little substance. But I wanted to hold in on two particular issues. First, the pay review. Councillor Saunders spent much of his contribution praising our staff, whilst at the same time wanting to take money out of their pockets. How ludicrous, yet fitting for a party that only views the public sector and its workforce as a drain on the state, rather than one of our biggest assets. We have had over a decade of pay restraints amounting to serious cuts in pay in real terms right across the public sector, and for our staff, I'm sure enough really is enough. If we want to attract the best, we have to pay well, not just for those on the top table to which he referred, but also our social workers, the planning officers, those in member services, and so much more. Secondly, as somebody who takes a keen interest in national constitutional issues, he got me really excited when he started talking about funding and devolution. I was almost bouncing up and down next to Councillor Lancaster here. We are, of course, the most centralised democracy in the Western world, but this is where Councillor Saunders, I believe, contradicted himself the most, by far. At one juncture, he seemed to be advocating for a German federal-style system of democracy, full fiscal devolution to the regions of this country. That's something I can certainly get behind. I'm not too sure whether either major party would support. But in the very next sentence, he then starts praising the government for £50 million here for potholes, £20 million here. So at the same time, whilst advocating German federalism, he's still defending the Hunger Games style of funding that we currently have. All in all, though, top marks. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If not, there were a few contradictions, but I'll give him a clap next time. I had a few worried faces next to me when I started clapping him. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor August, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to say, remember budget last year, I was quite critical of the back of the napkin style approach that the Tory party took. So congratulations for taking on my advice and for coming together with a budget this year and actually serving the residents of this city and doing so. And congratulations for doing an entertaining speech, Councillor Saunders. But that is, unfortunately, where the congratulations end. I do find it absolutely staggering that you're suggesting we might cut cost of living support in this city. I find it absolutely staggering. I genuinely did not see it coming that you would suggest such an outrageous thing. This comes on the back of central government refusing to give an inflationary uplift to our household support fund when it costs us more and more to feed people in crisis, when it costs us more and more to turn the heating on, to turn the electricity on for people who come to us saying they literally have empty fridges and fridges that they can't even turn on. It costs us more. And I ask, but they don't give us a penny more to deal with that. So when we try to plug the gaps that the central Tory government make for us, we find that our local Tory party want to slash what we're trying to do as well. And I find it really shocking that you could suggest something so harmful to the people of this city. And I urge you, it's not too late, to withdraw that proposal, because things aren't getting worse. Inflation coming down doesn't stop the fact that it cost more last year and it's going to still cost more. That's not how inflation works. It is costing far, far more, and we are having more people than ever come to us in crisis. And as Councillor Merry said, putting money into the pockets of people on Band H is not going to do anything for those people in crisis. So I urge you, in all earnestness, to withdraw that proposal at the very least and to show your residents some compassion. But I hope you can do the right thing.
Thank you, Councillor August. Councillor Hines, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for at least presenting a budget this time, an alternate budget. Obviously, we've stood up here over the years and had a go at you not for doing that. So thank you for doing that. But let's get real. Get real. We're talking about a cost of living crisis, which we're all, seeing it day in, day out. Our residents are seeing it day in, day out. But why is there a cost of living crisis to the extent that it's done? Yes, the Ukrainian war. Yes, the pandemic. But at the end of the day, I was in this chamber time and time again, pre-pandemic, pre-Ukrainian war, talking about crisis, and certainly crisis in local government. We've had nearly 13 years with the Conservatives at the helm, who've done next to nothing for local government. The Mayor's right in his submissions when he talks about the short-termism of local government, the fact that local government is there to support the overwhelming majority of the people. When we, and I've said this so many times, when we, and I don't know whether you do it that side, but when we talk to our MPs or sit surgeries with our MPs, 80% of the issues that the public come in with, not to see the MP, but they think that the MP is in a position to have some clout. It's about local government, and it has been about local government in the 39 years that I've been on, but generally speaking, it's gone worse and worse, certainly the last 13 years. Crisis, crisis, crisis. You mentioned crisis. It's been crisis throughout every government, and I've, like Paul was talking about the 7 that he's presented, in my position, in the life that I had at the time, it was over that of the years that I presented a budget, and it was almost always a crisis-ridden budget that we were talking about. So let's get real. You know, we talk about you're looking at the council tax, reducing the council tax. Most of our residents, 80% of our residents, are in A or B. I saw the other night, Westminster Council, of course, are not raising a tax. Why? Because of their properties are in the higher end of there. They're getting money. They don't need to raise the council tax. We do. But again, as Paul has said, 80%, or John Merry has said, 80% of the people that across the country, councils are going to have to raise the council tax to survive. The local government association, time and time again, says about we need more money. We need more money to make those services that are absolutely necessary for the people. It sickens me to the teeth. We talk about, the government. What about the energy? What about the mass amounts of money that the energy companies have made in the last few months? Or we talk about the stock market. The stock market at the moment, it represents the people, the richest people in the country. The 1% to 5%. These are the stock market's been higher than it's been in decades. Let's get real. At the moment we're talking about our budget. And if we did accept Councillor Saunders' alternative budget, we've got a crisis that he will have been told of by the Section 151 officer over the next few years. It's going to be a very, very difficult time again. Now, if you put this, the retention and recruitment bodies back to next year, I could see next year you say, well, we've got to put it back another year, and another year, and another year. Because unless you grasp the nettle, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. Because at the end of the day, we can't guarantee that this government will put any more money into local government to make sure that we survive. And that's really the reality of the city mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. Councillor Bellamy, please.
So something shocks me if I get up to speak, because I'd never get up and speak. So I thank Councillor Saunders for his enthusiasm in trying to support the residents of Salford and the entertainment that has been second to none. However, as I set up a food charity and work with many organisations across the city, I feel that cutting the cost of the cost of living crisis fund is going to have a detrimental effect on our residents. I've seen a huge rise in families and older people across the city needing not just food support, but support with other costs. And to cut this fund would be more and more pressure on charitable organisations who are already close to breaking point. I've personally worked with many older residents and families in our city who don't know if to eat or heat their home. I've had many of them even crying on my shoulder, as they're so close to breaking point. So I'm shocked that you would even suggest cutting this fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Robin Garrido, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't propose to say very much because I will be responding shortly in response to the City Mayor. But I think I just really ought to put the record straight in terms of the reduction in the hardship fund and the increase of the council and the decrease of the council tax. You have to look at these two things together, not in isolation. It's a red herring that Councillor Murray suggested about Band H. We're not just talking about Band H. Our proposals have been based on Band D, and they affect tens of thousands of people in this city. So to say that only a few will benefit from the council tax decrease is a falsehood. Many tens of thousands of people will benefit from the decrease in the council tax, and there are people that may not have benefited from the hardship fund but do need assistance. So when Councillor Saunders suggested the money, not just a few, that's exactly what our budget seeks to achieve. It seeks to spread the help across the whole band of people in this city, not just those that may receive the hardship fund, but those that don't, who do need assistance. And I'll say a little bit more about that later. Just very briefly, in fact, on the pay review. This is not a pay increase, as I think was suggested by Councillor Bailey. This is an additional settlement to actually level up the pay levels within the city. And I agree, they need to be done. There's no disagreement there between any of us that this has to be done. But there's a right time to do it. And we don't believe this is the right time this year, as in fact clearly this council has believed over the last few years that it's never been the right time. We are suggesting just a 1 year delay, and I'll say a bit more about that later on.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Garrido. Councillor Sharp, please.
Thank you very much. I too welcome the improvements this year that the Conservative group have made, bringing an actual a set of proposals forward rather than just the back of a fag packet like they've done in the past. So thank you for that, and thank you for the excellent delivery. It was entertaining. I agree with my colleagues. The substance of what was contained, again, wasn't the best. And the last council I spoke about the cost of living fund and how we should be doing our all to protect that fund because it protects the most vulnerable in our city. I'd like to take it back to Lord Marmot's review. So a couple of years ago, there was a 10-year review from 12 years ago, and Lord Marmot, in effect, said it was mainly about public health. That what we should do is we should spend more on people that have less money and less income, and as the scale goes up and people get more money, we should spend less because they have the resources to support themselves. And I fully believe that's the best way to deal with mainly public health issues, but generally issues across the council that our areas have with deprivation. But what we've had instead, and this is what the Labour Party's aim to do, is to provide funding to areas that need it. But what we've had, and what the cost of living crisis and what this budget doesn't reflect from the opposition, is that we've got a government that is hell-bent on reducing funding for local authority areas, in deprived local authority areas. And it's not covert either. It's an overt attack on deprived areas like Salford. And Rishi Sunak, your Chancellor and now your Prime Minister, has even been caught on video recording. And I quote, "We inherited a bunch of formulas from Labour that shoved all the funding into deprived areas and that needed to be undone. I started the work on undoing that." This is a covert, an overt and deliberate attack on deprived areas and deprived people. And when you say we need to cut the 2% to protect people, that's not what it's about. We could do that if we had the funding like we had in the past, where governments provide funding for deprived areas, and quite frankly, we're not getting that. We're getting a government that's just repealing all that and making it worse for our people in our city. The funding that you've said, the outcomes of it, so if we cut funding, £60 per year saving for Band-Aid, £60 per year. I don't know what that's going to do for people out there, but if you cut it for Band H, it's £180 a year, so that's 3 times higher. So again, why are we prioritising people that have money in the pockets over people that don't? So the one thing I'd take away from that is to repeal that decision to reduce the funding for the cost of living fund, because that is what people need. Because energy, as you quoted, energy prices are going up, they're going down, they've been up and down. I don't know what you was trying to say on energy, but we all know the cost of energy are astronomical and people are struggling to pay the bills.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Morris, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to support Councillor August's request that you repeal the piece about cost of living fund. I live opposite a food bank shop, and believe me, they are queuing round the block. And I would just like to ask the opposition, how many food banks are there in Band H properties?
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Could I have Councillor Karen Garrido, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say a couple of things. Like Bill Hines, Councillor Hines, sorry, I've been on this council a long time, and I know that in the past, right, and it's never when I did a budget on the back of a fag packet, I have to say, I did an absolute full budget, and Councillor Hines, I'm sure, would support that. We have got to look at the way that we finance local government. We all agree with that. It needs to be a better formula, and I think that that's something that we need all to take forward with us. The thing that really hurts me and worries me is the them and us situation that you are painting to the people out there. You are saying that if you live on your own in a Band AH house, right, which you've probably lived in all your life and was probably bought for about £100, right? Because the houses in Worsley Village, a lot of people bought their houses, they worked at gardeners, they bought their houses for £100, right? So yes, they are property rich, but they haven't got a lot of money. But what you are actually saying here is that because you live in a Band AH house, right, we're not going to give you any help. You don't deserve any help. That is a load of rubbish. These people are proud people. I know there's rich people in our areas. There's rich people in Eccles. I think there's more rich people in Monton than there is in Worsley Village, I have to say. And it would be interesting to see what price houses we all live in, right? Because it is down to the way that the market has worked on houses, and I have no control over that. But it's just so upsetting to be in here and listen to you having a go at people like me, right, who live in a house that may be worth that amount of money, but isn't. I didn't pay that sort of money for it. I have worked hard all my life, right, to live where I live. My husband has worked all his life so we can live there. And what you're saying to me is, well, that's tough, guys, right? You're not going to get any help from us because you don't deserve it, because you live in a Band H house, right? And that really, it's been said all along. Councillor, you said a Band H. Councillor Sharp, you said a Band H. Councillor, you said a Band H. You know nothing about whether these people
Sorry, can I have a bit of order, please? Councillor Councillor Garrido, Councillor Sharp has a point of explanation. Just let him come in, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, point of personal explanation based on, I did mention, Karen Garrido, Band H, and I did mention Band A. The point of referring to those two bands was the difference in cost that the savings would make from not paying the 2% council tax. My point was that if we protect the cost of living fund, then that will enable us to have the flexibility to support whoever needs supporting. It doesn't matter if your house is worth 300k, 500k, 2k, whatever. People can apply to that fund and they can get the support they need. That was my point.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Garrido, please continue.
Sorry, just to come back on that one, that's what we will do. I'm moving the money, right, if nobody having to pay council tax. And this tax, can I just finish what I'm saying? And then Councillor August can stand up and say that she wasn't meaning council Band H. This band goes from C to H, from A to H, right? But what we're working on, right, is what we always work on, which is Band D. Councillor August.
Right, sorry, point of explanation, Councillor August.
Just to say that our point is that not everybody in this city requires support. The cost of living support, the household support fund, anybody, regardless of what council tax band you live in, regardless of how much you earn, whether you get benefits, you can apply to that. We have a fund for people in crisis, as opposed to... Sorry, Robin, I'm continuing. I'm sorry, your party has a long history of not making points of personal explanation.
Sorry, just one moment, please.
So, she's misconstrued what I said, so I'm personally explaining my point. That's a point of personal explanation. Anybody can apply to that fund. So, to say that there is nothing available if we don't do this is completely incorrect. Anybody, regardless of circumstance, house value, council tax band is available to apply to this fund, and that is what proper welfare is about.
Okay.
Can I just say that...
Sorry, Councillor Guido, do you still want to continue speaking?
If I may, yeah.
Of course.
I've not even got to my
That's
speech
fine.
yet.
I'm sorry about the interruptions, but we have to follow the
well, I still have
process
extra
of point of
time
explanation.
because I've had all these interruptions.
Okay,
right,
thank you. Please
It's my I thought it would be different now after being away from the council. This council's no different. It's still at it. And, you know, can we just listen to what we're actually saying here? And my concern is that this was not given as an explanation. I understand what you're saying, but there's no way, and I might have missed it, because it's a long document, it doesn't give the explanation on how this money is going to be sent out and done. Sorry, I can't find it. If you'd like to just point it to me, I will actually... Oh, sorry, I've lost my speech now. Oh, well, I don't need it, do I really? I'm used to standing up and blarting in here. Right, there's a couple of things that I want to touch on. One is, right, and I know that John Merrick, Councillor Merrick and Bill Hines will know what that is. For 30 years, I've been saying, make the Working Class Museum, right, fund itself. Why are we spending, all right, 20,000 is it, or whatever it is, to actually fund the Working Class Museum, right? They've got very, very rich patrons, and it needs to be looked at by again. And I've been going on it forever, right? My second point was regarding the, sorry, I've lost it. Sorry, I'll have to sit down. Sorry. No, I'm not.
Oh, sorry, did you want to carry on?
Chair, can I call we have a recess?
So we were just discussing
second
that.
that, Chair.
I think should we take our 10 minutes now? Because we are actually coming up to 5 to 11 anyway. Just to check on Councillor Garrido is... Come back at 5. He's all right then. Okay, come back at 11:05. Thank you.
Ceremonial Mayor, City of Salford, Councillor Anne-Marie Humphrey.
Thank you, everybody. Please be seated. Let's just have a little bit of order, thank you. So we are going to continue from where we left off before the break. So the next person who was indicating to speak was Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Chair. To be honest, I'm not very enthusiastic about this budget today, and I'll go into some of the reasons why. Jovially, I think, Councillor Saunders, you described having Councillor Garrido to your side and to your front. This council and the people of Salford, I would describe as having the backs up against a wall. I know there are many in my community who live in a constant state of dread about every bill that drops through the door. I take no satisfaction, to be honest, in being here today and voting in favour of the budget in raising council tax and that bit specifically. But I know that any sensible council that governs in the interests of the many and not the few, as you phrased, has to make difficult decisions to protect the most vulnerable people in this city and to protect effective services from an experience and talent drain, and ensuring our council meets the challenges that has been thrown its way by successive failed and failing Tory leaders. The budget amendments put forward by the opposition Conservative group doesn't rise to the scale of the challenge we find ourselves in, but in fact would set, in my opinion, to make matters worse. you use lots of metaphors, so humour me for a second. It's a kick it down the road into the long grass, jam tomorrow budget that leaves dark clouds looming over this council if it was to be adopted. I won't be supporting it free in heart and mind, and I'll be supporting the budget today.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Fletcher, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to address some of this to my sometime friend, Councillor Rabbi Saunders. Well, first of all, I'll just digress a little bit, just to say how I think Councillor Sharmina August expressed things so very well. And I do know that many people of my age group are certainly, should we say, property rich and cash poor. And as she articulated, Councillor August, this does not stop people who are property rich and cash poor applying to the fund. Now to you, Councillor Rabbi Saunders. Well, firstly, I hope you're in the next Jewish Theatre Company's production, because you'll certainly lift it. The next point I would like to say is I'm quite surprised you didn't mention something in the budget, something close to your heart. You said that you wanted the streets of Salford to be cobbled again. So I really wonder why you hadn't put that in. But on a more serious note, something that I do feel quite strongly about that you've put in is removing financial support to the working class movement library on a permanent basis. It's not even going to save an awful lot of money, but the main point is this is educational and no money should be taken off any form of education. And maybe you and your colleagues could go down to the Working Class Movement Library and educate yourselves in that manner. Thank you.
Councillor Womsham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Normally when I stand up it's to attack the Conservative Party, but I won't bother because the alternative budget is just, well, no comment. But what I am here about is I'm very annoyed and disgusted at our other opposition party, the Liberal Democrats. They haven't had the decency to put in an alternative budget. And now, looking at them, it seems that the one member that happened to turn up has gone before any votes have been taken. So how can that be part of democracy? And I think the people of Salford Quays should remember that these Liberal Democrats are not looking after them. And the people of Odsal should be aware as well that their member hardly turns up at any meetings. And I just find it, when you take on this role as a councillor, it's a serious matter. You are representing those people that voted for you, and you are part of that democratic process. So I've got to say, as a long-standing councillor, I'm absolutely disgusted at the way the Lib Dems treat this council.
Thank you, Councillor Womsham. Councillor Saeed, please.
Now it's on. Thank you, Chair. Other colleagues have made similar points, but I want to emphasise that the choice in front of us is clear. We have the budget statement from the Mayor, which despite the difficult circumstances, is financially responsible as it addresses the challenges of our times. The impact of the pandemic, Brexit, the energy crisis, inflation, and the cost of living crisis. It's providing a sensible way forward without cutting the crucial services that our residents need and deserve. It is a budget showing competence and conscience. On the other hand, the amendment proposed by Councillor Saunders and Councillor Keeley is quite frankly an attack on working people and is an attack on the most vulnerable in our communities. It is also an attack on the hard-working staff who work in our council. By proposing to cut the cost of living fund, by proposing to delay the pay reward that our staff need and deserve, and by proposing to stop support for our working class library, which by the way has been an asset for our city and for the working people of our city for hundreds of years, just like the national government, their proposal lacks conscience as well as lacking in financial competence. Thank you.
Councillor Said. Councillor Keeley, please.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, is this my second in speech, or is that correct? Or what we're doing?
Yeah.
Reserved right. No worries, fantastic.
Sorry, just a minute. You reserved your right to speak, so you come in at the end of all the other speakers.
Yeah,
and then the City Mayor will come back to speak
after that. Is this the end of all the speakers? Is that
yes.
Correct? Okay, no worries. I just didn't want anyone else to miss out. No worries. Thank you, Chair. I'm sure we'll cope. God forbid. Well, I don't think I'll give much as a rousing speech as my good friend Councillor Saunders, but I will, before I second the amendment officially, I'm sure the City Mayor and councillors will put on record their best wishes to Manchester United this Sunday in the Carabao Cup final in Wembley against Newcastle. Councillor Pepper, here we go, bit of cross-party support. Well, end it there, Madam Mayor. No, we'll end it there. Although I think after last night's result, I think we'll all be Carlo Fantastico, I have to say. But I rise to second the Salford Conservative amendment today, and before I come back on what's already been said, I want to outline my reasons for why I believe members of the Chamber should support it. I believe this amendment fixes some of the issues that we have with the City Mayor's budget today, and as a group we don't want to simply do nothing for 12 months for the city, hence why we've introduced the fortnightly street clean. In fact, it was just over a year ago in the Blackfriars and Trinity by-election, looking at the heavy litter bags a group of friends and I were collecting, and meanwhile in the local party we were out campaigning, reminding what they were promising to do to take action on this to sort out the litter. Well, Council, this is your opportunity to do so as we increase street cleaning from every 3 weeks to 2 to fulfil the vision of your own party in that by-election and our group to pot pride back into our city. And within the City Mayor's budget, I understand the commitment remains for traffic patrols, and I endorse that, but what we're investing specifically here is to ring-fence investment for the next fiscal year to install specific road crossings to be used outside or nearby to schools for all of Salford. With the ongoing issue of traffic congestion and the worry it could get worse, this is a key ring-fenced investment for our city and a commitment for our group to for safety for our children on our roads. There's just a couple of things I wanted to come back on. Councillor Merry, thank you for your contribution. It's always a gem. In terms of communications, we're simply attempting to streamline the communications budget, and your comments on Liz Truss's mini budget are noted, but I'd still rather a Liz Truss budget every day than an anti-growth Jeremy Corbyn one. I have to say that's my personal preference, and I'm sure well, I mean, unfortunately they didn't go for my good colleague Councillor Saunders this time, but you never know next time. In terms of what Councillor McCusker said, obviously we're certainly not kicking anything into the long grass, because obviously if you read it and listened to what I just said, Councillor McCusker, obviously investing in some of these key services such as street cleaning, such as traffic patrols and specific ones, and these are the investments for our city and the ones we commit to today. And I mean, I'm sure we can anticipate the result. I don't know if it's a recorded one, but I would like to raise that one if it is. I would like a name vote on this amendment, and I think you can vote for this today and vote for the investments that we are proposing by supporting this amendment. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Councillor Keeley. Can I now have the City Mayor to respond to the amendment, please?
She said no comment on the cost of living, but sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wasn't going to comment on the debate around the amendment, but I've been prompted or encouraged to do so by a number of things, actually, and I'm glad Councillor Warmisham has raised the issues with regards to the Liberal Democrats, because I was disappointed we didn't have a full complement today. I am disappointed that they're not proposing an amendment to be debated. I am disappointed that no one is proposing an alternative budget, by the way. What we're discussing today are amendments, not alternative budgets. there is a distinct difference, and I think it's important that colleagues in this chamber acknowledge that. But it also seems that the only Lib Dem that did attend the council chamber has seemingly gone missing during the interval. So deeply disappointed at that, because today's council meeting is probably one of the most important meetings we have in the annual calendar. This budget sets the context for what this city council does over the next financial year. I think it's important also to note that what the Conservatives are recommending here is to increase council tax, but not increase council tax in the full, in terms of what government have already assumed councils will be increasing council tax by. I'm not going to rehearse the comments made around the cost of living crisis fund. I think Councillor August did a good enough job of that. But let's not forget, Salford is the 18th most deprived local authority in the country. We've been doing lots of work on tackling poverty. This council chamber has received thorough, robust reports to talk to the work we're doing on the cost of living crisis, mitigating poverty. So no member of this chamber should be in any doubt whatsoever as to what we're doing. And then also, Councillor Saunders, I did note that you didn't mention Liz Truss's collapsing of the economy in your kind of jocular sort of speech to the council chamber today. And obviously you didn't mention the £7 million inflationary impact this council is dealing with, nor the over £1 million pay award we're having to find the money to pay, none of which is adequately supported by government. I think this amendment is political posturing. I think it's disingenuine. At the moment, 3 out of 4 councils up and down the country are increasing council tax to the full. The Local Government Association is telling us that we're still, even with this settlement, 2.4 billion less than what we need to deal with inflation, energy costs, contract prices, staff pay, rising interest rates, the list goes on. And you also know that the next 2 financial years, we're still having, even with this budget, to find 36 million. And you also know that there's huge uncertainty around local government financing, fair funding, business rate reset, the 100% business rate retention pilot, rising demands for services, and you're suggesting that we create an even bigger cuts or saving target for the future, over and above the 36 million we're already grappling with. This is utter madness, colleagues. Thank goodness we do not have a Conservative lead member for finance. Also on budget consultation, you should know that we consult on a biannual basis, Councillor Saunders. I did want to highlight that. But what's quite clear to me is that there's been no real meaningful engagement with the budget process. I'm not aware of lead members being spoken to about these proposals. I'm not aware of these issues being raised at scrutiny, which I attended, and I'm certainly not aware as to whether or not you've actually responded to your own government's consultation on the provisional local government finance settlement. What I do know, though, is the Tory government is looking to help out Croydon to the tune of 540 million, writing off debt. We all know about sweetheart deals with regards to Surrey on adult social care, transitional grant funding, millions of pounds being shoved into Tory councils. And obviously Councillor Sharp drew our attention to what the current Prime Minister was doing to sort out Tunbridge Wells back in the day, manipulating methodology in the Treasury. So I do have a huge amount of issues with your amendment today. You've not referenced all the challenges with regards to the settlement around adequately dealing with our 15.4% population increase. You've not mentioned the funding guarantee and how ultimately what that does is skewer money into Tory councils that should be contributing to the revenue support grant in terms of the wealthy authorities putting money into the pot to help the poorer ones. Finally, Chair, on the pay and grading review, I find it absolutely abhorrent what you're suggesting today. Local government workers have been the front line during the pandemic. They've seen below inflationary increases in terms of their pay for many years, certainly for the last 13 years of Tory austerity. We as a local authority are having to rely on the private sector, agency workers, to get the job done. And maybe this is what the Tories want. They want to hollow out local government and force us to engage with the market, with the private sector. And it's been absolutely heartbreaking seeing skilled, competent, deeply committed people leave this organisation in the middle of this cost of living crisis. They didn't want to go and work for another local authority, but they have to pay the bills, they have to put food on the table, and at the moment, our pay and grading isn't where it needs to be to retain those members of staff.
Mrs. Mayor, you have gone over, so...
Okay, thank you. So I urge all of you not to support this amendment for all of these reasons, and maybe Councillor Garrido can let me know if they did actually reply to the consultation on the Provisional Local Government Finance Supplement. Thank you.
So, a point of personal explanation?
Yes, please, Chair.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, point of personal explanation. First of all, I'm sure the Section 151 officer will back me up on this. I did actually request a personal meeting with the lead member for finance. I was told it wasn't necessary because the officers would be able to do that on his behalf. Secondly, in regard to the working class library that my colleague Councillor Fletcher mentioned, I did actually attempt to attend the meeting there arranged by the Mayor a few weeks ago, and even with the sat-nav, I'm afraid I got lost. And finally, the City Mayor mentions that we didn't produce a budget, it was just amendments. Well, I think that's semantics, because I could have requested members' services to print out or put on the digitally everything else that's not amended, print it out and make it part of our budget. I didn't want to do that, so if I need to explain that, take our amendment and everything else leave in, and that becomes our budget.
Right, thank you. So the amendment has been proposed and seconded, and Council is now asked whether they agree to it.
Just a question, because obviously I've read with interest the document that's been shared with us. I wouldn't mind the monitoring officer or the chief executive confirming precisely what the officer advice and guidance has been with regards to whether or not this can be considered an alternative budget, because my reading of the advice in the note that's been circulated is it absolutely cannot, and I wouldn't mind some clarity on that. Thanks.
Yeah, Chief Executive, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I can confirm the proposal before Council is an amendment to the budget. It's not a full-blown alternative budget, and it states very clearly in the advice provided by myself and the Section 151 officer that there is a gap in relation to savings that would still need to be identified. So in the hypothetical, I stress hypothetical scenario that Council passes the amendment, it could not today become the Council's budget, and if the amendment was carried, it would have to be referred back to Cabinet for consideration and further work to be done to identify how to close that savings gap. So it's not, in statutory terms, a full-blown alternative budget that could be passed by Council today.
Okay, thank you for that explanation, Chief Executive. What is it,
Madam Chair, can I just clarify and agree with the comments made by the Chief Executive? Our amendments today were considered to be part of amendments to the main budget. They were not considered to be the full budget. And clearly, with the strength of 8 councillors against 50 odd, we certainly haven't got the wherewithal at the moment to produce a full budget. And if we did, it would take an enormous amount of time from the officers who have considerable time themselves in preparing the council's budget. So we're not pretending this is a full alternative budget. What we are saying, in fact, is it forms the basis of the amendments that we would make if we were actually in charge of the budget.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just start again. The amendment has been proposed and seconded, and the Council is now asked whether they agree to it. In accordance with the Local Authorities Standing Orders England Amendment Regulations 2014, this has to be done by a named vote. Therefore, can I ask members to state clearly whether they approve, do not approve, or abstain when your name is called out by the Senior Democratic Services Officer, Mike Rolfe. So can I ask the Senior Democratic Services Officer to take the vote, please?
City Mayor Paul Dennett.
Do not approve.
Councillor August.
Do not approve.
Councillor Bailey. Councillor Bellamy.
Do not approve.
Councillor Bentham.
Do not approve.
Councillor Boschall.
Do not approve.
Councillor Brabiner.
Do not approve.
Councillor Brocklehurst.
Against.
Councillor Brooks.
Do not approve.
Councillor Kamel.
Against.
Councillor Cusack.
Don't approve.
Councillor Dawson.
Don't approve.
Councillor Dickman.
Against.
Councillor Fletcher.
Do not approve.
Councillor Karen Garrido.
For.
Councillor Robin Garrido.
For.
Councillor Jane Hamilton. Councillor Hines.
Against.
Councillor Keeley. Councillor Kelly. Councillor King.
Do not approve.
Councillor Lancaster.
Against.
Councillor McCusker.
Against.
Councillor Merry.
Against.
Councillor Morris. Councillor Mullen.
Against.
Councillor Nelson. Councillor Curran-Ziza. Councillor Pepper. Councillor Pevitt. Councillor Gina Reynolds.
Against.
Councillor Neil Reynolds.
Do not approve.
Councillor Robinson Smith. Councillor Rowland. Councillor Michelle Saeed. Councillor Arnold Saunders. Councillor Sharp. Councillor Sharp. Councillor Irfan Saeed. Councillor Teta. Councillor Turner. Councillor Wade. Councillor Wayne. Councillor Warmisham. Councillor Warner. And that's it. Have I missed anybody? Yes, that's 5 votes for the amendment and 39 against.
Sorry, Mike, can you repeat that again? Some
Yeah.
order, please.
That's 5 for the amendment and 39 against.
Right, thank you. So that's not carried.
Let's go back to the main debate.
Yeah. So now, can I ask Councillor Robin Garrido, as leader of the Conservative group, to make a response to the revenue budget and capital programme 2023-2024 as presented earlier by the City Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Disappointed that the amendment was lost. Madam Chair, I was hoping that at long last members on the other side might have seen sense, but that wasn't to be. Can I also just say at this stage also that very disappointing that the lead member for finance didn't see fit to attend what is the major financial meeting of the year.
Sorry,
Well, that wasn't said, I'm sorry. We were not told that.
Sorry. Can you just be quiet for a moment?
Yep.
Councillor Yard is actually unwell today, so that is why he
In
isn't
that
here.
case, that is obviously acceptable, but I'm afraid, Madam Chair, not even you knew that he wasn't attending, and we certainly didn't know he wasn't well.
Apologies forgiven.
That's all, not that he wasn't well.
We never say. Point of order.
Yeah,
But we
it's
do
fine,
actually, yes.
we found out this morning. Yes.
thank you, Chair. Perhaps then we could just, I mean, I'm not defending anyone, particularly the Liberal Democrats, but perhaps we could just stop it here, referencing people who aren't here. We don't know for what reason why people don't turn up. Both sides have now said this, both Labour and Conservatives, and I think it would just be for the public who watch these proceedings. Perhaps we could stop bashing each other for not coming to these meetings, for we don't know the reason for. Sometimes they are ill, sometimes they are working, and sometimes perhaps they come because they choose not to. But we don't know the reason, and I have raised this with the Chief Executive this week, and I think it's probably necessary that we draw a line in the sand now, both Conservative and Labour, and we can stop bashing each other for not appearing, for the simple reason is we do not know. There are members of the Labour group who are not here, who have attacked the Liberal Democrats, and vice versa, and I think we can draw a line in the sand
Right,
now. So
okay, Councillor
Keary,
Keary, noted, thank you.
Happy to draw a line, now we know the reasons. Can I just start, in fact, by saying that we on this side certainly our thoughts are with the people of Ukraine. It's 12 months anniversary, unfortunately, today of the war. Unfortunately, lots of it's going to be going on for quite a while yet. But whatever support we can give as a council, I'm sure we will give. Whatever support the country can give, I fully support. And as I say, our thoughts are with everybody from Ukraine, including those people who live in Salford and who are obviously suffering just as much because they're away from families and they don't exactly know what's happening in their own areas in Ukraine. This morning I started to make a few notes just before the Mayor started speaking. I thought to myself, this is probably going to be an easy task, because unfortunately the City Mayor will probably say very much the same things as he does at every council meeting, and indeed what we heard at the budget last year. And I knew that we would have the word austerity mentioned at least once, and if we were really unfortunate, several times. Now, Madam Chair, that was a hope, and I was disappointed that we did in fact hear the same old story yet again. But I think what we have to do, and I think this was inferred earlier in the debate on the amendment, we must all work together for the benefit of the city. We must stop this them and us situation in this council chamber. It certainly doesn't benefit the residents of Salford, and it certainly doesn't do any good to any of the councillors in this chamber. On many occasions I've spoken about having a consensus, and the budget should be no exception to that. We are always willing to sit down, whether it be with the lead member of finance, whether it be myself with the City Mayor. We are always willing to sit down to see whether some consensus can be reached on some of the items. And there are certainly some items in this budget which I believe, with some effort, we could have had consensus on, whether that be the children's crossing, whether it be on street cleaning. These are all issues which concern people in our city a great deal. I think I would have liked the City Mayor to go into a little more detail on grants, but he did mention one or two specific grants. But if I can actually just mention a global figure, which I think puts it into perspective in terms of the help that the government has given to Salford, and that is £435 million in grants to Salford, either coming directly or coming via Greater Manchester. That's a very substantial amount of money. The exact figures haven't been confirmed yet, and certainly we expect it to be, when the figures are finally done, somewhere in that region. So I do think we have, in fact, some reason to be grateful to the government for the assistance they've given Salford, and in fact the assistance they've given to many of the northern local authorities. They have been neglected for a long time, by Conservative governments as well as by Labour governments, and it's time, in fact, that they were noticed, and I believe that is what the Conservative government is currently doing. Our residents need to know how the budget is going to help them, and we thought it was beneficial to try and help as many people as possible in this city as we could. One portion of people we need to help are obviously those people on either low income or no income at all and just on benefits. And I believe that's what the Hardship Fund will concentrate on. But I believe we also have a duty as a council to help all those other people who have very small income. They may have savings which are dwindling, small pensions, and are finding it very difficult to manage. They may not live in bands A and B properties, but they certainly would live, tens of thousands of them live in bands D and upwards, not just in band H. That's a very small minority of people, but certainly in that middle band. And those are people that deserve our help as much as anybody else, which is why in our amendment to the City Mayor's budget, we have tried to apportion the amount of money available, and we've done that partly by actually not having the 3% or the 2.99% increase in the council tax. This will benefit a whole range of people in this city, and it will not detract from the Hardship Fund. The funds, unfortunately, never get fully drawn down. We hear often that the grants that we've actually made available, even over COVID, not all were fully spent. And I think, in fact, that we will certainly have sufficient to actually cover the majority of people, plus the addition of the savings that they will make for those that are paying council tax. We also heard, I think I'm correct in saying yesterday, that the government, in fact, was making further funds available to local authorities to actually help with hardship funds. So I think it's quite possible that the Conservative government would, in fact, have made some strides in trying to actually increase the amount of money available, and we fully support that. We've tried a slightly different approach this year, and if we were setting up a hardship fund, we would try not to discriminate against anybody, and that's the whole crux of what we're suggesting. A fund and a way of helping people that will not be discriminative. We've tried to design a system that sets out to help every single person in the city, whatever position they may be in, and I hope from what I've just described that is exactly what we're doing. Councillor Sharp attacked our amendment as being an attack on deprived people. No, that's not true. This goes back to this argument about them and us. We are helping deprived people as much as we're trying to help deprived people of a lower income who do pay council tax. So we're helping people across the board rather than one just specific area. But let's look at the difference between the Conservative proposals and the City Mayor's. Under the Conservatives, every council taxpayer would be better off to the tune of at least £53 in Band D, plus for those eligible, a top-up from the Hardship Fund. But unfortunately, we're now lumbered also with a £20 precept from the Greater Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham. To be honest, I think until we had seen a better performance for Greater Manchester Police, until we had seen the better attendance at crimes or solving crimes, I personally would have held back from that and said to the Chief Constable, start producing the results and we'll start to give you a bit, try and make a bit more money available. But I think what also concerns me is that there doesn't seem to be any opposition from the City Mayor to this precept. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he was present at the meeting that agreed the precept, and as far as I'm aware, there wasn't any objection from him to the precept. We would certainly have objected. We don't think it's fair. We don't think to add another £20 onto everybody's bill is justified at the present time. I think Andy Burnham should have given much more thought to how he could help the people in Salford as well as Greater Manchester. While we're asking questions, is there anything in the budget that's increased services by helping to make our young people safe when walking to school. I did not see any provision in the City Mayor's budget that actually helped to make school children safer when crossing busy main roads to go to school. And this is something that we are constantly tackled about in person and in emails about various parts of the city, whether it be in our own areas or in other parts of the city, of main roads which do not have any person to help children across the road and do not have any electronic form of crossing. We feel this is about a mission. We know that there is a budget of £200,000 to cover the employment of what we call them nowadays, lollipop persons. You know, we used to have lots of them at one time. We've lost ours in Worsley, and I know other areas have also lost them. It seems that it's very difficult recruiting. So I think we do have to go towards electronic crossings that are there all the time. We're suggesting that maybe zebra crossings are the way forward, and at around £70,000 per crossing, we think we can manage probably about 6 new crossings in the current 12 months. Obviously, if we can get those costs down, then maybe we can provide more crossings. But I don't believe anybody should vote against that. I think we have to keep school children safe, and there are too many unsafe crossings, whether it be in Worsley Village, or whether it be on Worsley Road by Broadoak School, or whether it be in other parts of the city, on Bury New Road, Bury Old Road, or whatever. We need to have safe crossings for our children. Unfortunately, City Mayor, this has been turned down this morning. Now, in terms of street cleaning, one thing I said when I became leader of the opposition last year was that we needed to bring the pride back into our city. And one of the biggest ways of bringing the pride back into our city is to have a cleaner city, a city that people can feel proud of. Unfortunately, the more litter there is on the streets, the more people tend to drop it. The less litter there is on the streets, the more people might be encouraged not to drop further litter. And maybe if we could have combined a campaign to encourage people to take litter home as well, maybe reducing the street cleaning, increasing the street cleaning from 3 weeks to 2 weeks would have a very beneficial effect and would help to improve the quality of life of all our residents. So we mustn't lose light of, you know, what might appear to be very simple parts of the budget, but have far-reaching effects on the population in Salford. Now, we've been criticised for the City Mayor, been criticised by other councillors in terms of the pay review. So let me first of all make it clear that this is not against the National Pay Award. That's totally different. That's something that's going through at the moment, and I'm sure will probably be implemented at the right time, as it was last year. But this is about levelling up salaries from the lowest to the highest. And can I make it also clear that we on the Conservative side agree with this review, right? We're not against it. We feel it needs to be brought in, right? All that we are against is the timing. Now, it could have been brought in last year by the council or the year before. As it happens, the City Mayor has chosen to bring it in this year. We think it's the wrong timing. With all the expenses that the council has, with the services that we need to provide, we don't feel that the council is able to provide the funding, the £4 million it needs for this current year. So what we're asking, in fact, is, and what we were asking in our amendment, which the City Mayor has obviously turned down, is that we defer for 1 year. That's all. Defer for 1 year. You know, it's already been deferred for a number of years. It could have been done, as I said just now, on previous years. But defer for 1 year, and then introduce it over a 2-year period. So let's have a phased introduction, so that it doesn't fall on the council all in one go. Now, I know that's not easy.
There's just 1 minute left there, Councillor Breed. It's 1 minute left.
1 minute, okay. I know that's not easy, but can I just say before I run out of time that I appreciate the amount of time I have been given by both Sam and Debbie in terms of looking at the review and seeing from our point of view whether there was any way we could actually get round not doing it this year. I appreciate the support they've given, and they've been very clear that they felt it needed to go forward this year. We've taken an opposite view at the moment, but we do propose to look at it again next year. Can I also say at this stage, before I run out of time, can I also thank Joanne specifically for the amount of help that she has given. We can be a pest at times, and whether it's late phone calls or emails or whatever, she's always there to answer them. She's always there to give us help and advice on a very neutral basis, you know, and I wouldn't expect anything else from an officer of her calibre. But we do appreciate it, and thank you for the help you've actually given. Could you also pass on our thanks to your team, because I know it is a team effort, and that other people are involved in giving that help and support. So, and I'm running out of time, there's a lot more I'd love to say, but what I really want to say, in fact, is in terms of what we hope to do next year, you know, in terms of how we're going to cover the deficit, because clearly we are building a deficit up, we understand that, next year and the year after. And we're looking at several things, but the main thing we're looking at is a rationalisation of the council's asset base. Right? First of all, we don't agree with selling off of keeping the stadium. We think our share of that should be sold off, as I think Peel might agree with. We think that both the embankment and New Bailey, the lease on one and the freehold on the other, should be sold off. Right? We think it's a burden on the taxpayer, and it will be a burden on the taxpayer for a number of years to come yet. Right? And we believe they should go. We shouldn't have the risk. Right? It amazes me, Madam Chair, that the capitalist schemes that the City Mayor brings forward, and we're here opposing them. But we're opposing them because they're not right for the city, and it's not the right thing for the city to do. And very finally, in the last few words, Madam Chair, is
please, Councillor
at the back of this building, we have a large grey concrete block, right? Half empty, maybe less than half empty. We would choose to sell that block off, right? We would sell it to a social housing provider, and we would expect the land to be used for the building of social housing. We might need to add a few extra rooms to this building, and we might need to get that Marie Celeste feeling out of the ground floor here. But certainly, those are the areas we will be looking at to actually try to meet the balance over the coming couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrido. So, do members have any questions or comments on the City Mayor's Revenue Budget and Capital Programme 2023-2024 proposals? Does anyone want to speak on that?
Sorry, on that side.
Okay, Councillor Turner?
I am honoured. Thank you, Chair. In addressing the City Mayor's budget, I thought it was one of his better presentations. There was a lot of fact in it, not great detail, but facts, some a little bit of exaggeration, which I expect from him. But yeah, basically, he's produced a balanced budget, and that's what it's about. He rightly draws our attention to the troubles in the world. In Ukraine, has been mentioned many times. That's what I call hardship. The way those people are suffering is horrendous, and my heart goes out to all of them. Gas, energy. There's no need to increase it in April. That's not helping. That's not helping anyone. The hardship fund, good idea. But don't forget, City Mayor, you did touch on the hardship fund, but you never touched on the amount. And the amount from April is approximately £5.4 million, which I think, together with what we've decided to do, will be a valuable contribution to, I don't know how it's divvied out or how people apply, but I think that does go some way to satisfy those people. I don't like the word hardship, actually. I think it's probably that the name that you used in your budget was probably a better crisis fund. So, yes, I really do believe that the government are trying to help. I mean, I don't agree with everything that the government do, don't get me wrong. I'm a bit like Councillor Hines there, if the government are doing things, and I don't agree with the 2% adult social care. That is regressive, and it should be funded by government. And it's not the first time I've said this. The City Mayor knows that I personally believe that it should be funded by central government and not put on the burden of the council taxpayer. The other thing is, we hear about hardship, and it affects everyone. Everyone is having to pay more for everything. And next month, you'll be paying more for your broadband, your telephone, your Sky, if you're lucky enough to have it. Cancel it if you have got it. It's all going up, and no one seems to realise we're in a crisis, and it's going up. But I have to ask myself, the council tax is going up as well, so that's not helping, is it? It's not helping. So I don't know where I am, really. I mean, I guess I'm just getting a little bit depressed with it. I really am. Because it's affecting everyone. You know, a council tax, I thought, was based on Band D, actually. I think Band D is the average that they suggest for council tax. But yeah, I think, well done, City Mayor. One of your better ones. Keep it up. Won't always agree with the things you say, but you've done your best. Thanks very much, anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Can we have Councillor Keeley, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. May I associate my remarks with both what Councillor Turner just said on the City Mayor regarding the conflict in Ukraine, and I have spoken to Councillor Birch actually in recent days as well to send my prayers and warmth to her and her family. Whilst I've already spoken obviously in favour of the falling amendment, I wanted to outline the reasons why I'm unable to support this budget today, and that probably won't come as much surprise. I'm disappointed that the City Mayor has chosen to raise the core council tax in its full when clearly and evidently we've provided a cost plan that does not always, that did not need to provide that. Mixing me words up. Basically, it didn't need to happen. People will point to some of the wasteful expenditure, such as the plans to buy out the AJ Bell Stadium in its entirety. You know, he spoke about the impact of Brexit. That's the Brexit that 62,000 people voted for in Salford, 56.8%. He spoke about inflation. May I remind him that his lovey-dovey EU, Spain, France, across the Eurozone, and outside the Eurozone, the US inflation has risen as well. That mini budget, really affected them. And it's funny, obviously I'm delighted that you referred to government money as Salford taxpayers' money. It's scarcely rather accurate to what something Margaret Thatcher once said, actually, as well. Perhaps you're more conservative than you think, City Mayor. Well done. Excellent to hear. In fact, I actually took tips from one of the Labour Party's biggest gems, Owen Jones, who always seems to corner me at the Conservative Party conference, one in a quote. And I remember in 2016 at the Birmingham Party conference, he went round asking people if they were feeling the effects of the positive economic outlook at the time, and the people he spoke to said no. Said no. Totally reasonable to say so. So I decided to take a tip out of his book, a little red one albeit, and ask people if they were feeling what they paid for in council tax was justified by what they were seeing, and the answer was no. People want their potholes filled, their car suspensions want them to work. And if it's not even yourself, Mr Mayor, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, and I'd love to put on record my invitation to Andy Burnham to attend a full council, or perhaps a special meeting, invitation to all councillors in this chamber, and I'd love him to come down because, of course, he's chosen to rise his precept despite the disgraceful mess that Greater Manchester Police has been in for several years. You know, we are often told that taxation is the price we pay to live in a civilised society. And in Salford, I feel this isn't the case. And if representatives of Salford Labour really cared about the public services they speak so passionately about, they'd stop accepting the hundreds of thousands of pounds in donations from trade unions, which are seeking to bring down this country. Hands up, guys, come on, no shouting out. And ensure our emergency services were able to function during this cost of living crisis. And therefore, I am unable to support this budget today and ask members vote against it.
Thank you, Councillor Keeley. Councillor Hines, and then your last speaker.
Thank you, Chair. Well, on the parting shot there for Councillor Keeley, it's not even worth considering what he was saying. It's just unbelievable. The trade unions, you know, which I'm a proud trade unionist and will continue to be one. But the monies that he talks about that we're receiving or whatever is just absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? But getting back to the reality of it, again, I'm supporting the Mayor's budget. We've worked hard and long to arrive at where we are with the budget, both the revenue budget and the capital budget. At the time, some months ago, we were expecting a far, far worse position that we were in. It was forecast that we were looking at one time 15 to 16 million pound cut for this next year. And of course, to some extent, you know, we've worked hard ourselves to reduce that size of that debt at the time. But we've had a soft landing. I've got to use that word, a soft landing, when the government have given us a better settlement than we thought. But that doesn't mean that's okay. But again, core spending that the Mayor has meant is that the council taxpayer in this city have really contributed hard. And therefore, and the government accept this, don't they, by lifting the referendum, you know, from, what was it, to just under 2% now to 3% on the council tax side. Accepting, in fact, that there's a major problem to keep councils going in this country. Of course, as Councillor Turner has said, we regret having to put the 2% on social care. That should be funded directly from central government. I agree with him there, and I'm sure that the Mayor does as well in that sense. Now, going back again, and this is the real problem, this is the nub of it. Local government finance is absolutely unsustainable. You just cannot carry on the way we're carrying on. You know, as I said earlier on, and opposing the Conservatives' amendment. This is a one-off year again. Where are we ever going to get a fully comprehensive, longer-term solution to fairer government spending? This is what we've got to have. And I'm sure that Robin Garrido, Councillor Garrido, would agree to that, to work in that way. But it needs us all to fight that cause, because local government is unsustainable, really, in the long term, and the way it's run in this country. Again, Councillor Garrido, on consensus. We agree with consensus as well. You know, always we would talk to you on that. We've talked to you before on the reserve situation, on every situation that we tried to get a consensus on. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, particularly on this one, we haven't arrived at that at this time. But again, the cuts of the last, and the Mayor mentioned it, when you take £240 million out of a budget, you know, that we have taken over the last 13 years on the north, how the hell do we, you know, meet the needs of the people, street cleaning, all the issues that you've raised that you don't think that we're doing? We've got to, of course, take that into consideration. But again, on this particular Mayor's budget, you know, obviously it's a balanced budget. We always have a balanced budget, of course. And again, at the same time, we really, really need to help the people, certainly within what's happening of recent times. We need to help them as much as we can. But of course, there's a price to pay for that to some extent. And at this point in time, the price would be, if you want to put it that way, that council tax goes to what the government has limited to do. And that's where we are. So I support the budget and hopefully the discussions, because again, I'll just finish on this. Next year, as Councillor Saunders, Councillor Garrido, and met with Joanne Hardman, realised that even next year we started to work again on that year's budget, because we're talking about £20-odd million savings at this point in time. And of course, if we don't raise the base of the council tax, that's going to compound the issue going forward at the next year and the year after, unless government come forward with monies that at the moment they've not been willing to do. Of course, Councillor Robbie Garrido mentions about the monies that come through from the pandemic. Have they not done that? Have there not been a furlough scheme? Have there not been help to businesses? Have there not been help to the people of City? I dread to think what would have happened. It's been bad enough for the people of this city during the pandemic. If government had not come forward with these grants, I think there could have been riots on the street. I'll put it as simple as that. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you, Councillor Hines. I'm now going to give the City Mayor's proposal the right of reply, an opportunity to respond to the questions and comments. Just be mindful, it's back to the normal 5 minutes now, City Mayor.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
How do I respond to all of that in 5 minutes? Gosh. Okay, first of all, Councillor Keeley, I know you made comments around attendance at full council, and I think those comments are well made. However, what I would say is that doesn't preclude members from engaging with the budget setting process, irrespective of whether or not they're in attendance here today. So I think that's an important addition to the comment you made. Councillor Garrido, obviously I associate myself with the comments you made around the people of Ukraine. And obviously we have people here in this city. One of our own councillors is a Ukrainian, Councillor Tanya Birch, and our thoughts and prayers are indeed with all of those people at what is an awful time in their lives. In terms of building consensus on the budget, there's building consensus in terms of the City Council's budget, and there's building consensus in terms of local government financing in the round. I guess in terms of the latter, I'd certainly like to see the Tory opposition doing a lot more in that space, because the decisions being made in the Treasury, the decisions being made in the Department of Levelling Up, has profound implications for Salford. And when we compare what's happening here in our city with what's happening in other councils around the country, I don't know how you can't reach a position of being morally outraged at how ultimately we have a national government that is looking after the interests of the rich, in my opinion, over the interests of the poor. In terms of grants and wanting more detail, you did quote a figure there, and I wouldn't mind you sharing with me that information. Is that this financial year? Over what period of time are you looking at that? Is that revenue? Is that capital? There's a lot of questions I had about what you said there, and there was no clarity. So let's continue those conversations. I absolutely associate myself with the comments you made around northern local authorities being neglected. And I think when we look at the whole levelling up agenda at the moment, we realise what a sham a lot of that actually is in real terms, because at the same time all of these noises are being made about levelling up, they're absolutely decimating local authority budgets. And you know yourselves how much has been taken out of this local authority since 2010-11, circa 240 million. That's 240 million we would have each and every year to spend on the people of Salford. Just think what we could do with that and how we could further transform our amazing city. In terms of how the budget will benefit people, I mean, I don't know how many times I have to tell you, but obviously this is about us delivering excellent services to the people of our city, giving a real living wage to our care workers, uplifting pay for foster carers in the city, investing further in roads and public footpaths, growing our economy, bringing in more jobs, more businesses, creating opportunities, building council housing when the market isn't delivering that, creating a cost of living crisis fund in excess of 3 million, in addition to Salford Assist, welfare rights and debt advice, discretionary housing payments, the household support fund, and obviously ensuring that we don't see the further loss of skilled, competent and deeply committed staff from this local authority, the people who actually deliver the services and actually make this place the amazing place it is. So, as far as I'm concerned, this budget delivers an awful lot. And let's focus on the positives that's being communicated here today. In terms of the policing precept, my understanding is it was unanimously agreed by leaders across Greater Manchester, which does include the Conservative leader of Bolton Council. I don't know whether you managed to have a word with him before his attendance at the meeting. But let's not forget why we're in this predicament where we're having to raise precepts for policing. It's because of the chronic historic underfunding that has seen over 2,000 police officers taken out of Greater Manchester. It's absolutely scandalous. That isn't to say that there aren't improvements to be made within GMP. That is not to say that. But let's not forget, the Tories are very good at talking about the here and now and dislocating it from why we're here and now. And why we're here and now is because, by and large, they've absolutely created crisis at the heart of public services up and down this country.
30 seconds, City Mayor.
Finally, on pay review, you already know we're spending circa £400,000 because of the challenges around social workers. We've got huge recruitment and retention issues. We're using agency staff, building control, flood engineers, finance and accounting personnel, procurement. The list goes on. If we don't do this today, we create huge workforce challenges for ourselves in the future, let alone the impact this will have on delivering good quality, excellent public services to the people of Salford. So I encourage you all to do that. Finally, I'm not going to get around to obviously responding to everyone's question, but in terms of responding to Councillor Greedo, I'd also like to associate myself with your thanks to the Section 151 officer, the monitoring officer, the chief executive, the senior leadership in the round, and importantly the mayoral team, who have worked tirelessly in what have been really challenging circumstances. Let's not forget, we only got the settlement just before the Christmas break. So to be here today, setting a balanced budget, that is a budget for the people of Salford, for the workers of this local authority, for the people who do work in our city, is an absolute fantastic achievement. And credit to all of you. And then finally, on the point you make about selling off our assets, I don't believe in that. I believe in new municipalism. We need to get back to a time when local authorities owned assets, sweated assets, and used them to generate revenue. The Tory orthodoxy is to sell off everything. Sell it all off and let our friends in the market benefit from it. It's an absolute scandal. And the comment made on trade unions was disgraceful. Because what you're saying is what we need to do is get in bed with property developers, because that's how the Tory party is funded. Scandalous.
Thank you, City Mayor. Can we have some order and please stop shouting across the chamber? Right, so the Council is asked to approve the recommendations as presented and outlined in the report submitted in accordance with the local authority's standing orders, England Amendment Regulations 2014. This has to be done by a named vote. Therefore, can I ask members to state clearly whether they approve, do not approve, or abstain when your name is called out by the Senior Democratic Services Officer, Mike Ralph. So if you want to do that, please, Mike.
City Mayor Paul Dennett. Approved. Councillor August. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Bentham. Councillor Boschel. Councillor Brabiner. Councillor Brocklehurst. Councillor Brooks. Councillor Kamel. Councillor Cusack. Councillor Dawson. Councillor Dickman. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Karen Garrido.
Sorry, can we have some order, please?
Councillor Robin Garrido. Against. Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Hines. Councillor Keeley. Councillor Kelly. Councillor King. Councillor Lancaster. Councillor McCusker. Councillor Merry. Councillor Morris. Councillor Mullen. Councillor Nelson. Councillor Curran-Ziza. Councillor Pepper. Councillor Pevitt. Councillor Gina Reynolds. Councillor Neil Reynolds. Councillor Robinson-Smith. Councillor Rowland. Councillor Michelle Said. Councillor Michelle Said. Councillor Saunders. Councillor Sharp. Councillor Irfan Syed. Councillor Teta. Councillor Turner. Councillor Wade. Councillor Wayne. Councillor Warmisham. Councillor Warner. And that's it. That's 39 votes for and 5 against.
Sorry? Right, thank you. So that is approved. So moving on to item 5, which is 2023-2024 Treasury Management Strategy, Annual Investment Strategy and Minimum Revenue Provision Policy Statement. Can I ask Councillor Hines, in the absence of Councillor Yode, the Member for Finance and Support, to present this report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, up until yesterday, I didn't think I'd be presenting this budget today, report today. Hopefully that Jack gets better quickly and that he's back on his feet and doing these kind of reports. Treasury management, I hope that everybody has read it in depth. I know it's in often cases it's a dry report, but nevertheless it's absolutely crucial to how we... sorry, Councillor? Sorry. How we go forward.
Sorry, Councillor. What is it, Councillor Saunders? Sorry? Oh, sorry, I thought you were intervening.
Okay.
Be Councillor Hines.
That's okay. So I'll be bringing up the salient points in the report, as I often do, and I've made these reports in the past. I always open up by saying the fundamentals are the liquidity, the investment, and more often than not, when I'm questioned on it, or, you know, it's about the borrowing side of it, and that's what that really stretches the imagination. So in the short term, using internal borrowing, using the cash in reserves has meant that we haven't had to borrow in the short term. Capital financing requirement forecasts are to rise over the next 3 years. You know, we've explained that in the budget position the Mayor has just referred to, and capital spend will be funded by borrowing in that side. Unsupported borrowing, of course, is the key to that, because the days of where we have supported borrowing in the main doesn't take place anymore. No change to the Council's investment criteria, still prioritising security, liquidity and then yields, I've just said, but increase limit, overall bank limit to better manage the Council balances. So then as we go through the statements themselves, The capital plans, the council prepares 5 treasury management reports over the year. This is the most important of those that we're setting out today. The capital plans including prudential indicators, you've all seen those, a minimum revenue position, MRP, which you know I've in my time as the time I put on sessions for that to explain that MRP is so important that we have that money to, you know, to safeguard us on the capital programme. Treasury management strategy, how the investments and borrowings are to be organised. 2 quarterly reports have been introduced, quarter 1 and 3. We have the impact of the council's capital financing requirement that is set out in the report of 4 and 5, summarised in table 6. This is a measure of capital expenditure that has yet to be paid, which MRP it will need to be provided in future budgets. Table 9 shows the council expected the resources and debt for 22-23. The amount of debt expected at the year end is forecast to increase because of the anticipated spend on the capital programme. That includes in monies that we've had over the years that we put on side before the time to spend it. The table 13 shows the interest rates forecast going forward, which the rates in the short term rise up to December 23 and then fall back. Well, obviously, you know, that's the report, but again, where are we with interest rates? Because who would have thought a year or 2 back we'd have had interest rates at where we are now. No long-term borrowing has been taken in 22-23, where it has, it's been short-term. Section 9 recommendations, the council is asked to improve the strategy for 23-24, including the treasury management strategy, annual investment strategy, including changes to investment limits, approve the policy for the calculation of the minimum revenue precision that I've referred to, and approve the strategy management policy statement and practices. I'll do my best to answer any questions. If not, you can forward those to the lead member and the appropriate officers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Warmerdam. So I'll now open that up to questions. We've got Councillor Saunders.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just as the Shadow Finance League, just want to thank all the officers for all the hard work they do 365 days a year. And thank Councillor Hines for stepping in at the last minute. I think you've done it before, Councillor Hines, so probably didn't find it too difficult. Just one thing raised my eyebrows. On page 139 of the agenda pack, and Councillor Hines, I have read through it, there's a statement on the organisation's political risks and management of same. It says, the risk of a change in council policy sufficient to have a significant impact on the Treasury management function is considered to be negligible. Now, I did wonder about that, and then it dawned on me what it means. They've done the maths, and they've realised that even if the Conservatives won 20 seats at the next election in May, we still won't have a majority throughout the next financial year. Yeah. And also, the Mayor is not due for re-election till May 24. So that's what it obviously means, that the risk of a change in political direction over the next financial year is obviously minimum being because there is a remote possibility every Labour councillor could decide to resign this coming May. So now I understand what that means. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Councillor Robin Garrido.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, some of my comments have already been made by my colleague in terms of the officers and so on. But I really just wanted to make some additional comments, and that is, we won't be voting against this, clearly. You know, this is the way we manage our finances, our capital programme, and so on. So that whilst we might not agree with a number of items that are within that, in terms of capital programme, we appreciate that it is being managed in a sensible and financially prudent manner, and therefore, on that basis, we certainly could not vote against it. I mean, I'll just point out on page 107, table 10, obviously borrowings we're always concerned about, and we would like to see a much bigger reduction in those borrowings over a period of time, which is covered in that table. But that's a long-term wish, and obviously something that's not going to happen immediately. So with those few comments, I'll stop. But can I just take the opportunity, as I ran out of time before, Madam Chair, that when I was thanking everybody, I omitted to thank the senior officers who'd also given us a considerable amount of help this year. I just would like to put that on record as well. I mentioned, of course, Yolanda and Tom Stannard for their help and advice, particularly over the last few months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gredo. City Mayor?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to ask Councillor Hines a question. I was just curious, given obviously developments in Croydon, if the Department for Levelling Up have reached out to Salford City Council to offer us 540 million to write off any of the debt, obviously, that we're currently carrying in our accounts, because obviously that would have a really positive impact, wouldn't it, Councillor Hines, on the minimum revenue provision we have to make in the revenue budget to service ongoing debt. And obviously Croydon's debt at the moment stands at 1.3 billion, I understand, and they're also exploring taking out some further loans. So just curious to know if the department has reached out to ourselves or our Section 151 officer to obviously give us our duly £540 million as other local authorities are receiving. The other point I'd like to make as well is around round 2 of the Levelling Up funding. Obviously, I've referenced Eccles being in the capital programme in terms of the future regeneration. We've obviously purchased the precinct. Government have now confirmed to us that, unfortunately, Eccles isn't deserving of round 2 Levelling Up because fundamentally the land values and property prices off the back of the regeneration that's going to happen aren't rising quick enough and high enough for the government to warrant spending money on the people of Eccles. That is a real concern of mine because getting access to central government capital is really important because it helps us with our revenue budget, helps us with our capital budget. Clearly, it seems to me that the government are not really interested in levelling up. They're not really interested in some of the challenges we're facing here in Salford. But I do think we need to be thinking about how do we look at influencing government in this space, because it's not acceptable for them to make those sorts of arguments with regards to justifying why the people of Eccles don't get access to capital. Thank you.
I think everybody's spoken who indicated, so thank you, City Mayor. We do have a proposer and a seconder agreed, so Council is asked to approve. So Councillor Hines has a right of reply.
Just come back on the comment. Can I come back on the comments that Councillor Garrido, Councillor Saunders and the Mayor have made?
Yes. Can I just say we're approaching 12:30.
Okay.
So if all members are agreed, we'll continue this to 1:45 to get through the business. Okay. I know, but I was just asking for your agreement to extend it beyond time. Okay, sorry, carry on, Councillor Hines.
Yeah, just on the Mayor's point there, yes, I only wish that we'd had the position that Croydon were, not the position that they're in, but the help that they're getting from government. I come from, when I first got on the council, the majority of the capital programme was paid for by supported borrowing. And it was only when the Labour government got in and John Prescott brought out the prudential changes, and that was an aid to the supported borrowing, and that has now become the key unsupported borrowing. And that's the problem that we are. And especially with the austerity that's been going on over the last 13 years, many authorities have sailed very, very close to the wind and used the capital programme to enrich their authorities. And many of them are now falling foul of that. But you make a good point as well, because of that, on the minimum revenue provision, that's so important because of the revenue programme. And this has always been conscious in my mind. I would say it again, I've never ceased to say it, The capital programme over the years has served us very, very well. It's produced a base tax base there that we've never seen before. Had that not happened, we would have been in big trouble. But I agree with you, Mayor. I only wish that the government would help us to the same time as they're helping others before we get into crisis, so that we really move forward. And Councillor Robin Garrido, I've got no problem with what you've said, Robin, in that sense that, you know, the capital programme, I've just said it again, don't apologise for the capital programme, but we do watch it very, very carefully. On Councillor Saunders' point of view, his reading of it might be different from mine, so I'll say no more than that.
Right, thank you, Councillor Hines. So now the Council is asked to approve the strategies and policy statements as detailed in the report. We have a proposer and seconder, so is that agreed? Show of hands. No, okay, then that is agreed. Thank you. So we move on to item 6, the medium-term financial strategy 2023 to 2026. And can I again ask Councillor Hines to present this report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the medium-term financial strategy is very, very important as we go forward. I only wish that, alluding to what the Mayor has said in the budget and what we've been trying to do over a number of years, is be in a far, far better position going forward long term. But we are where we are, aren't we? And therefore, I'll just go through some of the, again, on the salient points. There is a risk at the moment because of the way the world is, covering all the issues that many of us have spoken to today. There is a risk, but nevertheless, we have fought going forward, looking for, you know, certainly in this year, 23, 24, but again, things could change in 24, 25. The council tax, the way the government's looking at council tax, we understand in this particular time now, they've allowed us to go to 2.99, 3% on the core council tax. Well, again, I understand that that will, in future years, at this minute, refer, but go back into 2.99, not 1.99 instead of 2.99 going forward. The 2% on adult social care at the moment will remain the same as I understand it. Going forward, compensation on the business rate projections assume the following: compensation to Section 31 grant for the loss of income due to the freezing of business rate multipliers and the spending review. Business rate multipliers will increase by 7.4 in 2025 and 2% in 25-26. Projections for growth in the council business rate yield for 23-24 to 25-26 will be continually updated using the latest projections from the council's regeneration team. The cost of appeals will continue to be based on updated historical trends. This is certainly important, and we need to keep a very close eye on that. The council will move to 100% business rate pilots in pilot to 49% retention. You know, this has been on our mind for some time, and there we go. So I'll move that medium-term strategy now. And answer any questions I can possibly can.
Right, thank you, Councillor Hines. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Warnishan. Any questions or comments? Councillor Robin Garrido.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As before, I'm going to keep my comments very brief, and in fact the comments I made previously very much apply to this. Obviously there are areas that we do have difficulty with, and certainly you're at table 1, council tax resource projections, etc. We just approved the budget, so there's not much we can do about that. All I will say, in fact, is that clearly, as an opposition, we will scrutinise these carefully when it comes to scrutiny committee, and we will raise any concerns we have at that time.
Thank you, Councillor Garrido. Any other questions or comments? No? Councillor Hines, did you want to come back? Did you want to speak again? Okay, thank you. So Council is asked to endorse the medium-term financial strategy 2023-2024. We have a proposer and seconder. Is that agreed? Thank you. That's Agreed. So I'll just move on to item 7, senior manager appointments and remuneration. Again, can I ask Councillor Hines to present this report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we've had a good session, you could almost say already, during the budget situation. I mean, it's absolutely crucial that we go forward. And I understand where the Conservatives are coming from, and they're saying that they're not against it, but they put it on the back burner. My comments to that, it will always be on the back burner in that sense, unless there is remarkable change from central government to fund local government. So you'll always, next year I made the point that we're already looking at £20-odd million savings going forward. So therefore, if we don't achieve or move that down, then if we have a discussion on this time next year, what's going to be the key? You know, we are going to be limited next year, as I understand it, on the referendum proposals on council tax. So quite frankly, unless we do grasp the nettle now, we're never going to grasp it. And it's absolutely crucial again, you know, when we go out to advert for recruitment or retention, there's a big problem there. That stands out, and I think the opposition agree with that as well at this time. So therefore, you know, it's crucial. This is going to go to the workforce panel, so I'll just go through that. Members will be aware of the workforce challenges being faced by the City Council in terms of recruitment and retention and increased turnover. That stands out quite clearly to everybody. To rectify these issues, a review to refresh the current pay structures and pay line in its entirety has been undertaken with a clear focus on fair and equitable pay across the organisation. At a meeting of the Workforce Panel on the 24th of January last year, we agreed the revised pay structure for implementation on the 1st of April this particular coming year. Following the resignation of the Strategic Direction for People, we have also taken the opportunity to review the roles and ensure leadership capacity in those critical statutory services. This is what we've been doing, and this is where we are with it. To ensure capacity, resilience and expertise for the safe discharge of the statutory responsibilities of the Director of Children's Services, DCS, and Director of Adult Social Services, DASS, the Workforce Panel also approved the establishment of 2 new Executive Director posts for Children's Services and Adult Social Care Environment Partnerships. Earlier in the meeting, I've just mentioned, approval was given to the City Mayor's budget for 23-24. You have agreed the budget allocation for implementing the agreed revised pay structure and ensuring that we can rightly continue to invest in our people that are so crucial to the service of the people of this city. Agreed key guiding principles to underpin the Council's wide pay review have remained a core reference point throughout and have ensured that the revised pay model has incorporated the pay line structure in their entirety. In line with the Council's constitution, it is Council that makes determinations in relation to remuneration of post, whereby salary is or will become £100,000 per annum above. As the salary range for a number of posts affected by the pay review already exceed £100,000, Council must be offered the opportunity to consider the revised salary ranges. A report therefore asking you to approve the revised pay scales that agreed by the Workforce Panel for those 8 posts detailed in the report with salaries at this level. I draw your attention to the recommendations that the Council approve the changes for remuneration panel for senior posts as detailed. Note the establishment of the 2 posts for Executive Director of Children's and Executive Director for Adult Social Care. Approve the remuneration level for these posts in line with the revised pay of 125 to 140,000. And that's it, Chair. Any questions? I'll try and answer.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. Do we have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Warmshire. And Councillor Robin Greedo, thank you.
Approved. and therefore it is part of council policy. We also said earlier that we weren't against the pay review. We're just against the timing of it. So therefore it would be churlish of us at this stage to actually vote against this, but in principle we actually agree with the position, we just don't agree with the timing. So I think whether it happens now, whether it would happen next year, we certainly needed to make ourselves more competitive, and we certainly should make our workforce know that we do appreciate the work that they do for us. We do have to be competitive against other local authorities, and hopefully the work that Sam and Debbie have done on this, which I think deserves another thank you again, has actually been exceptional, and I think has produced some good results. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greed or Councillor Keeley.
Thank you. It's just a very quick comment. Obviously, when these positions are advertised, not doubting the transparency of the council, but I find it very, I think many people would agree with me, that they find it quite annoying when any employer doesn't display what salary they are advertising and just says competitive or to be discussed. So I'd certainly like to put on record that any job vacancy, anything that comes up on the council, I really think it should display the salary that has been offered, not necessarily just say competitive. So I don't know if it does or not. If it does, that's great. I'm not attacking anyone. It's just a point that I'd like to make, because I think people either get put off by these things, and I think it's just important to note that. So if that is the case, that's great, and at least carry on.
Usual procedure, Chair.
Right, thank you, Councillor Hines. Does anybody else want to speak on this? No? Councillor Hines, do you want to come back on anything? Thank you. So, Council is asked to approve the recommendations detailed in the report, approve the changes to the remuneration level for senior posts as detailed in the report, as agreed by the Workforce Panel on the 24th of January 2023. We have a proposer and seconder, so is that agreed? Right, thank you. So, I'm happy to say that now concludes the business of the day. Thank you very much for your attendance.